Here I'm gonna execute Jibril, and Jibril is gonna be configured with a single detection recipe, and this recipe is responsible for detecting access to a specific file in the temporary directory. So if I execute the loader by loading the configuration from a YAML file and telling which recipes I would like to have enabled, now it's ready to pick this kind of behavior. If I do a touch slash tmp slash blurg, as you can see, it provides the detection and it tells me what just happened. And I'm going to describe a little bit here, because then I'm going to execute the same pattern inside other two containers, and I'm going to show the difference of context and how Jibril detects that. So in here, you can see that the file that triggered this detection is tmp blurg, right? And then we have the full information of the triggerer of the process that generated this detection. This process had opened all these files, and then the actions it took to each of those files is over here. As you can see, touch was executed. That's why the binary has execv flag here. And then we can follow the ancestry up to systemd. So you can see that systemd, ssh session, and bash, and then finally the touch command, which was the command that triggered the detection. Together with this, we can see the habitat for this triggerer, which is telling me that this is an Arch Linux version rolling, right? And then the executable is touch, and the interpreter is the loader, and it belongs to core utils in this version, right? And then you can also see the dependencies for all those the dependencies for the shared libraries of this executable. And then a little bit more information with the head of the detection saying exactly what we just detected. So now if I do more complex process, we can see that it's going to detect much more information from what we got from the touch, right? So if we come from in here, if we see all the open files, you can see there's lots of open files, right? So tmp blurg, and then we have the files that were touched. As you can see, there are many files in my home, like for example .config and vim autoload plug.vim. It read my theme while it was loading vim, and then lua files initialization, nerd tree initialization, etc. As you can see, all the files that vim has accessed, right? And then we can see the ancestry, also like executed from the bash. As you can see, the command line was enving into tmp blurg, and then we can see inside habitat now the executable is nvim, and it belongs to the package ninelvim, and it has all these dependencies. So all the dependencies are here. As you can see, glibc has 3 libraries which nvim depends on, and then the other files are also packaged in other packages for Arch Linux. Right, so this is like a common detection for a specific detection recipe that Jibril is capable of. Now I'm gonna do something different, so I'm gonna execute the same detection, but from inside, for example, Debian container, right? Uh, let's do a blurg in here, and then we wait for the detection to happen. Is a few seconds, sometimes is less. And then you're gonna see that in the habitat, instead of Arch Linux, now we have Ubuntu, right? And then we have all the information from Ubuntu, from the packages and package versions. So it means that the same detection recipe has worked with the host, with an Ubuntu container, and perhaps with, let's say, a CentOS container as well. Let's see if it gets all the information from CentOS. right after the execution took place. And yes, it got. So as you can see, the habitat shows CentOS, rel, touch, core you choose, and all the versions. Probably, yeah, so it's like the files touched by touch binary in here. So you have all the files that were opened during the execution of this process that triggered the TMP blag action, right? And then you can see that it's a container because the tree shows it being a child of the container D. And then here is the parent and the process, very clear. And again, the demonstration. So to end, I'm going to show you if we executed Python script, for example. So I'm going to execute a Python script in the host, right? And then this Python script doesn't do anything. It literally just imports some modules and it does open the TMP blurg file. And then when we go to the detection, we can see more interesting stuff apart from all the habitat where we would see the binary and all the package dependencies and their versions. Instead, since this is a script and not an executable, you're going to see this. So you're going to see the Python and all the modules and the versions from the modules that this executable has used while triggering the detection, which is literally opening the TMP blag file just like if you've seen before. And the cool stuff is that you can see all the files that the Python binary opens when you execute that script, right? So the trigger is TMP blurg, the actions, one of those actions triggered this recipe, and then we have all the files opened by Python binary, okay? And at the end, together with the habitat, we have not only the information about the distribution where we ran this script, but also since this is a script, instead of showing you the OS packages and informations and versions, I'm showing you the which type of script this is and which kind of packages it imports and what are those package versions. So with that, you can imagine that where we are heading at, which is basically causing CV detections on demand for anything that has been executed with very little or almost no time to detect and very low overhead. That's all for today. Thank you.